As the truth about Harvey Weinstein's horrifying predations first came to light, Al Franken, the comedian-turned-activist-turned-politician whose snow to Capitol Hill professional trajectory seemed to be open to yet further upward designs, offered on his Facebook account a note of support and encouragement for victims of UAL misconduct. The women who have shared their stories about Harvey Weinstein over the last few days are incredibly brave. It takes a lot of courage to come forward, and we owe them our thanks. And as we hear more and more about Mr. Weinstein, it's important to remember that while his behavior was appalling, it's far too common. Common, indeed. 5 weeks after Franken posted his Facebook note, model and radio broadcaster Leanne Tweeden publicly alleged that in 2006 Franken forcibly kissed her and grabbed her breast, all without her consent. After Tweeden, another woman came forward to allege that Franken touched her inappropriately, this time in 2010. 2 more allegations followed, with one of the women claiming Franken asked if the two could find a bathroom, presumably in an attempt to pull off the old grope and then request maneuver. That's 4 women that we know of. In this atmosphere of heightened sensitivity to UAL misconduct, the kind that has even summoned a reconsideration of Bill Clinton's fitness for office, one would expect the knives to be out for Franken. The mea culpas from former Clinton rationalizers were displays of genuine remorse, right? The cynics who said the further would fall on the politically obsolete and would bypass those currently in power couldn't be right, could they? Commendably, a chorus of left-leaning writers and activists have called on Franken to step down. Not all have, of course. Some offered ridiculous appeals to Franken's non-abusive behavior, as if the occasions on which he wasn't abusive somehow nullified the ones on which he was, while others rationalized their preference that he stay by citing high-minded reasons that at bottom amounted to little more than special pleading. We thought we had turned a corner, but it turns out that there remains far too much space for political expediency to underwrite our moral judgments. It would have been understandable, perhaps, had Franken offered us a case in which we just can't know what really happened. But the accusations appear credible, and Franken's apologies have read like embarrassing displays of patronizing, responsibility-evading nonsense. Here's a heartfelt example. Some women have found my greetings or embraces for a hug or photo inappropriate, and I respect their feelings about that. Imagine attempting to convey an attitude of care and respect for women even as you're apologizing for groping them. Remarkable. It's as if he's saying, I'm not like the others, you see, I grope them, and then respect the hell out of them when they complain about it afterwards. He's patting himself on the back so hard he's practically groping himself. Well, you see, I respect women so much, I defend their interests with such unrelenting intensity, that I'm going to sympathize with their feelings that my, unwanted touching of their private parts did not come across as lovingly as I intended. The most brazen of these statements was his suggestion that his groping was a function of his warm personality. Amazing how the warmth of Franken's hand, as it cupped their breasts and asses in uninvited joy, didn't convey to these women the sense that he cares. What's wrong with these ice queens? He's just being warm-thin again. A non-denial shouldn't automatically entail guilt. A public figure might withhold a strong denial if his camp thinks it will not be possible to prove innocence in the court of public opinion. Railroading happens, and Franken's non-denials aren't ipso facto admissions of guilt. But this isn't a call for Franken to resign. It's a call for others to call on Franken to resign, if the allegations are true. Let me be as precise as possible. Franken's colleagues, especially his Democratic colleagues, should not be allowed to wait until the facts are known before they declare that if he is guilty, then he must go. A hypothetical is not an actual, so our elected officials should not be allowed to deflect by saying that the facts aren't in yet. Why should we care so much about a hypothetical? A statement as simple as, if true, he should step down, from prominent members of the offender's own party, could go a long way to helping create the kind of political culture we need. What it does is bind the allegiance of our representatives to the people and not to their colleagues. It ultimately binds them to the truth and not to their friends. These people are working for us, representing us. It is not strange for us to demand they be fiercely loyal to our interests. One way to do that is to have them publicly affirm that anyone who is guilty of making unwanted UAL contact with others should resign. Anna North, in a piece for Vox, sees the Franken episode as an important test for Democrats. She fields an objection from Crooked Media's Brian B. Utler, who worries that if Democrats accede that those accused should resign, the right smear factories will begin to exploit the Believe Women movement and repurpose it toward their own goals. Who could have predicted that "believe women," which basically codifies willful gullibility, is susceptible to capture? This is the built-in exploitability of "believe women." It's precisely this weakness, this vulnerability to being weaponized toward partisan aims, that indicates its unseriousness as an evidentiary standard. As a countermeasure against the claims of women falling on deaf ears for far too long, "Believe Women" is a step in the right direction. Ultimately, however, it is harmful to the very individuals it purports to serve. It perpetuates the culture it decries by leaving it open to misuse or too easy disconfirmation. When elected officials get away with mistreating women, it's not fundamentally because the woman's story is heard, her evidence is weighed, and ultimately her accusation is disbelieved. It's because an entire party circles the wagons and, using a public denial of the woman's story as just one component of a broader strategy, the party does everything it can to shield the official from registering a political loss for the party. One way to incline ourselves away from this culture is to demand that our elected officials provide hypothetical denunciations. When they do that, they signal their commitment to the people and to the facts. They in effect provide us with a current and unambiguous commitment to judging the matter according to what is right and true rather than according to what is best for the party to which they belong. Stating, if true, he should step down, seems small and insignificant, but it actually goes some distance toward disallowing partisanship from shaping the response to allegations of UAL misconduct. On Sunday, we were reminded of the disgusting selectiveness that partisanship requires of its practitioners when House Democratic leader Nancy Pelosi said John Conyers deserves due process, but Roy Moore is already a child molester. Pelosi were strengthened by due process. Just because someone is accused, and was it one accusation? Is it two? I think there has to be. John Conyers is an icon in our country. He has done a great deal to protect women. Violence Against Women Act, which the left, right wing, is now quoting me as praising him for his work on that, and he did great work on that. Anna North is right to be worried about a political culture that offers post hoc denunciations while leaving current ones unaddressed. It's the easiest thing in the world to do that since it doesn't cost any political capital. You might think it will cause the public to think less of those who admit they got past judgments badly wrong, but the contrary is just as likely to be true. The denunciation will be applauded as an example of boldly reckoning with the facts. North writes America is listening now. And Wilson. Kirsten Gillibrand DNY made headlines last week when she said Clinton should have resigned the presidency. No Democrat that prominent has said that Franken should step down. Gillibrand's comment was certainly controversial, but it's easier to criticize a 71-year-old former president whose career, even as a supporter of his wife's campaigns, is over than it is to pass judgment on a sitting senator whose future still matters for his party. Let's not allow our elected officials to refrain from signaling their commitment to protecting the people they purport to serve. Let's demand that they affirm the principle that if so-and-so is guilty, then so-and-so should resign. Let's start demanding that our politicians declare themselves supporters of the truth, and, by proxy, the people they represent.